Hey YouTube. So I said I was going to show you how I made this tool to take a cam bearing out of the rear journal while the engine is in the truck. Okay? So I'll start at the back here because it's easiest. There's just a nut on a threaded rod. First of all, this is a 3-foot piece of threaded rod. Okay? There's a 1/2 inch threaded rod. There's a nut there. And I have this big piece on here. It's not for any particular reason other than I turned this down to fit into the journal of the first bearing so that the rod would be in the center. So all that does is hold the rod in the center of the journal. So then the rod goes through, and what I have here then, and this was the what you want to call a good idea part of this. There's another nut. This piece here that I'm holding in my hand with the rubber band on it there, that's just a copy of the same parts that came with the original puller. Now the reason that I did not use the original puller is because in case this didn't work, I didn't want to ruin it. So I made another one and put a rubber band around it. The purpose of this was I turned it down to the same size as the original cam bearing remover that came with the kit. So this was the same size outside diameter here and here as it was contracted. But I needed it to expand once I got it through the bearing, so I had to cut it in 4 pieces to be able to get it to expand. Now how to make it expand? Well, that's where this comes in. So I had this idea, and I do a lot of praying, so maybe the Lord put this idea in my head, which I believe He did. I make this thing. Now you can call this a bullet because it looks like one, or you can call it a mandrel. Alright? So what that does is when I put this inside the bearing and I tighten up on this nut, what happens is it pushes this into that and expands this so that I can grab a hold of the just the edge of the bearing and pull it out. And the distance from here down to here, let me see my papers here, was 1230 seconds clearance. So I don't know if you can read that, but it's actually 1230 seconds. It was a total of 1 3/30 seconds to the oil plug. The bearing was 2230 seconds wide. I had 1230 seconds to play with. So what I did was I made this so that it would be 1230 seconds. From the top of this flat washer, and this is a grade 8 washer, I just welded it to the center of the rod with some tools that I could hold it perpendicular, and the grade 8 held up good because I had put an earlier one on and it just pulled the washer apart. It was a zinc washer that I had. So anyway, that's the key to this, is this little bullet. Okay, you make this bullet so that when it goes in there, the diameter of this shoulder up here is exactly the width of the outside edge of the bearing, so that you can grab the bearing without grabbing the case to yank that out of there. So thank God that this worked. I don't have to take the motor apart. I am as happy as can be at the moment. I don't know if anybody's ever seen anything like this, or I'm sure there's a lot of guys out there who have made something similar to this that didn't want to take the motor out. But I haven't found any on eBay. But the key to this is this bullet, or this mandrel. You turn that down to the size so that when it's totally inside the cam bearing installer or taker-outer at this point, that the outside edge here from one side to the other, from this side to this side, is exactly what you need. And on this Jeep it's 2 inches. Yeah, okay, so it's 2.129. From the outside edge on one side to the outside edge on the other side. And that is what grabbed the whole of the bearing and yanked it out. Man, I am so happy. I might even celebrate. Okay guys, so like I said, it's a long rod, 3-foot rod, 1/2 inch nut. This could have been anything. You see they have like the cone. I probably could have used the cone that came with the kit, but I just didn't want to hurt the kit in any way, because I think that kit was like $200. So just some junk laying around, aluminum. Put another nut, and like I said, I made that end piece just like the ones that were in the factory package. And the mandrel, that's the key. When that mandrel was exactly the right size to open that bearing up to 2.129, that's exactly what I needed to grab a hold of the bearing that was in there, left in there, to be able to pull it out. So anyway, that's that. And then all I did at the end here was I took and welded fairly roughly a bead of weld around there to hold this grade 8 washer on there so that it could pull against this when I tightened the nut at the opposite end against the front journal. So worked pretty good, right? I mean, it pulled it right out all first try once I got the measurement right. The key is getting this thickness from this shoulder to the washer. Now I don't know if this Jeep had a bigger distance there than other cars would have, but I'm pretty sure that there is some distance there in clearance, and that clearance is what would have, you know, that's what designates what you can do back there. So that's what it looks like. The nut, the bullet or the mandrel, the collar with the shoulder on it to grab the bearing cut in 4, and then a washer welded to the end of the rod. And there it is. Alright guys, have a good one. Bye.